Welcome to another exciting edition of Near Mint Comic Radio, your local comic shop shrunk down, gamma radiated, and aired live every week, only on the Non-Productive Network, the only place that would have us. I'm your host, Frank, joined in studio by Pete and James. Hi, Pete and James.
Hi, Frank.
Hi, Frank. I cannot categorically deny any of the things that you just said.
On Near Mint, we rank and review comics from best to worst. That's Mint, Near Mint, good, fair, and poor to you newbies, and try to guide you in what to read and what might be better to avoid. And we are doing a very special presentation. We're reading Jonathan Hickman's long-awaited return to the X-Men books in House of X and Powers of 10.
Hoxpox.
Hoxpox, right, as the internet is beginning to refer to it. On this episode, we are going to be spoiling everything inclusive of House of X number 2.
The fourth issue in the reading order is what we're going to go up to today.
Bing. So let's get right into it. This is a big book. This is a huge book. House of X number 2 is huge.
This is the one that was teased by Marvel as the most important page in X-Men history.
Yeah, and I finally see why, and it's not hyperbole. It is chef's kiss, perfectly done.
I am not a long-time X-Men reader. Like I said, I've only hit the greatest hits, the classics. This was amazing. And they do a great job of showing how broad the scope of this change is going to be and how much backwards and forwards it affects, and it was fantastic.
It reintroduces weird into X-Men, which is maybe been missing for way too long. Just because I was slowly becoming aware of what was happening, and it takes the entire run of the book for me to be really aware of what's happening. I'm more and more disturbed by what's going on. So let's give some background, right? Because it's only fair. So Moira McTaggart.
Yes.
Big character in X-Men lore, but also kind of like this unanswered question.
Yeah, she was
almost unasked question, really.
Yeah, she was a human scientist who studied mutants.
Right.
Unless you're watching the movies, in which case she's an FBI agent
Sure.
who studies mutants.
Right. And she's the occasional love interest of Xavier.
Exactly.
Charles
yes.
Xavier.
On again, off again.
Occasional foil to the X-Men, mostly in what if stories or alternate futures and things like that, where she's working on a cure for mutants, which of course mutants may not want because that's who they are. She's an ever-present character in X-Men mythos. She's been around for a very, very long time. She's definitely not often a powered individual, and when she is ever depicted with having some sort of supernatural abilities or anything, it's almost always in a what-if scenario.
I don't believe she never was anything more than a baseline human.
Yeah,
in the regular continuity.
Exactly. So this book opens up with a description of her life. And for the most part, it seems pretty benign. As it goes through her fairly mundane life, how she excelled at certain things, but she got sick at a very young age, but she made it through miraculously. She had many children. She lived a happy life.
As a long-term X-Men fan, I'm reading this and saying this isn't right.
It seemed a little off.
This is not Moira McTaggart. This is not what her life was.
So my feeling, first reading was is this her mother? Are we going back? Because it looked a Little House on the Prairie-ish.
Yeah.
Maybe this was earlier on, or
I felt
maybe
like this was contemporary with James Howlett's childhood.
Yeah, it felt something about. It didn't seem like they were talking about Charles Xavier really, when they were describing the love of her life. But I'm like, what's the point here? Where are we driving at here? This character who, as well written as she is and how often she appears, often is just the +1 to more major characters.
And then she dies at the ripe age of 74.
Yeah, and that, I'm like, what is happening here?
Huh?
Is this somebody writing fanfic of the life she should have led? And then immediately we ratchet up the weird. So in this book, in House of X number 2, we find out, and if you put this on paper and send it out as a press release, you'd get a bunch of bad hot takes from a bunch of comic book fans who are like, oh, this isn't cool, this isn't fun, this isn't canon, or this isn't the comics I'm used to. I'm sure a lot of people would have because on paper it sounds weird. Moira McTaggart is a mutant, and she's always been a mutant. And I'm like, this is not good except for the way it's presented, which is fantastic.
It's so good.
We find out that I think literally her next incarnation, she is aware of everything that has happened in her first life.
Yep.
Because of that, it spoils what she does in this life, and she can never line things up perfectly. Mm-hmm. She knows too much about the man she will eventually fall in love with, and it spoils the surprise. And eventually, she
dies in a plane crash on her way to meet Xavier.
Right? Yeah, she finds out about Xavier on the plane ride there. She dies, and I'm like, what is that? Immediately back in utero. In her next life, and my mind is blown. I'm trying to figure out. Like, what are your experiences? We're trying to recreate what it was like to read this first time. Of course, if you're listening to this podcast, hopefully you've read along. What was it like for you two when you're slowly piecing together what they're doing with this character? Pete?
I mean, I think I saw it. I'm probably the worst one to go to first.
Oh?
Because I think I understood what was happening pretty much immediately.
Really?
I'm reading this and trying to figure out when the timeline that we're familiar with takes hold.
Mm.
And I'm sitting there wrestling with, okay, does this actually, can this somehow line up and not contradict everything that's come before?
I guess I kind of also figured out pretty quickly what was going on. It's not like that crazy of a notion, right? You figure out she's reincarnating and going through this. I think to me, the fun was seeing all of the stuff she did in all those timelines. So like third timeline, they have the big handy chart here at the end of the book.
All the ancillary material is great.
And it's, like in her third life, she's the person who finds the X gene, and then she dies in the laboratory accident, right? Then she's one of the versions she's, developing the cure, and she gets killed by, Mystique and the other, villains we know.
I feel like, wasn't there one of them where it's just like she immediately screws up and takes a mulligan?
No.
That's what it felt like. I might be like cross-referencing that with an episode of Family Guy in my mind.
Well,
yeah.
No,
that's what it felt like.
No, because they make a point when she meets Destiny?
Destiny
That
says you do not have infinite lives to do this.
Yeah, at one point you'll mess up and it'll happen before your X gene takes hold, and then you're just like any other human.
Yeah, so for me, I'm well aware something's happening here around the third incarnation, because the second one was just weird, and I figured maybe that's all there is. She has a lifetime of experience, and they're mulliganing away her past. And then when she dies on the way to meet Xavier and has another life to run into him, I realized that reincarnation is somehow her power set. But what's more interesting to me is how that plays out in narrative, right? So if her power set was time travel, which we're pretty familiar with X-Men. Mutants, there are a decent amount of mutants who do time travel as their gimmick. Even if it's not their mutant ability, it's their gimmick, right? Cable, right? Obviously, Bishop. In these characters, the question always becomes, what timeline are they really from? And then what can they do to the other timeline to correct it? These are air quotes on both, right?
Yeah.
The idea being that they're almost as if they're different realities. They're different worlds, different planets that have almost the same background, but things can happen differently in those things. With Moira, the way they described her abilities, it's every one of her lives is a not real world. Everyone. Everything that's ever happened to her is something that never really matters in the long run.
Yeah, when she dies, she gets to do it again. It's just like it's wiped from existence.
She exists completely off book from everyone else in a way that isn't time travel, because she can experience it all, get it to its ultimate state. She's almost the most important character in a way, because it all revolves around who she is and what she's doing.
Yeah.
And that's kind of awesome because, and I love the panel where she's, like talking about all of her lives, and we get a shot of like the new X-Men and X-Men versus Avengers and like all these things that like, are not non-connected, right? Assumably, but with all comics, the continuity is fuzzy. And well, I'm sure Pete disagrees with me, but it just as a new reader, what a cool way to make that stuff seem super accessible in the moment of Moira's story.
Right. It all lines up in a very interesting, unique way that isn't time travel. And when we run into her experience with Destiny, it's show don't tell, right? It's not all just narrative. It's not just exposition. She's interacting with this major character who's explaining, like, yeah, we all have weird things going on. Mine is I know how things will go. And just so you know, your mutant ability you may die one day before your mutant ability kicks in, and then you die. And even that is just brilliant because the pubescence and the way mutant ability expresses itself in fiction almost never really matters. It's a stand-in for like being a teenager and being full of I don't fit in. Mm-hmm. I get it. That's cool. Comic books are fun. But this is one of those times where like that element adjusts her power set in such a creative way. Everything about this, when you hear that Hickman wrote this was thinking about this for over a decade, I believe.
Yeah, I think like 16 years.
Yeah,
since he was a teenager.
I feel it. I get it now.
Yeah.
I see where he wrote it. He's been playing with this forever.
It brings a lot of really, to me at least, interesting questions. Like how do Destiny's powers work? If she can see these other universes or these other timelines that Moira's going to lead.
I don't know. I got it.
She can see that they exist at least.
Yeah, it was a little vague. Like she couldn't see directly into them, but kind of like the way time and stuff moved around her. It was weird, but neat.
But time moves around you in a way that you're going to only have 10 or 11 lifetimes.
I think, to be honest, I think that might just be statistics she's spouting out. She's like, just so you know, you can only do this so many times. Eventually, that die is going to roll, and you're going to die when you're 5, and your mutant ability won't kick in, and you'll just be dead.
Yeah.
I'll be around and I'll kill you because you constantly hunt us down.
Yeah. It also is. I brings up the question of exactly what is happening with these other lives that Moira's leading. Like, does the universe reset for everybody? Do those universes that she's living in keep going past her death?
That's so fascinating. They never answer it, but in a way, they, like I said, they've refocused it so she's the most important character in X-Men. In a way,
it's very interesting considering how much time travel is played a part in X-Men stories that we've known so far.
Yes.
Because what does this mean for X-Men from the future?
Right.
Like Cable. Like, does Cable's future exist anywhere? Does he ever get... And then does he exist anymore if there's no future for him to go to?
It's super fascinating. It's an awesome way to play with this dynamic that there is a character that acts almost as if a black box for possible futures, right? Here's all the things that could go wrong. I'm the thing that survived when it did go wrong, and I'm here to tell you everything. And one of my favorite parts about this book, not only does it refocus on Moira X as the main character, these little quotes, these little page quotes that Hickman puts in the front and the end of these books. I'm here, I've always been here, Moira X at the end of this book. But the last panel, which is that same panel we've seen earlier in this run, the page that will change X-Men history forever, and it's Xavier meeting Moira for the first time, and Moira saying, read my mind and see, and his expression when he sees it. My favorite part about this, yes, Moira, center of the universe, really awesome, but, Professor X has been the major driving force in X-Men pretty much from the beginning.
Yeah.
Really, from the beginning.
His name.
Yeah. And one of the things about Professor X is that he is arguably evil. Right? He does a lot of very shady things, right? He manipulates people's memories. He puts new thoughts into their heads. He edits out things, sometimes willingly, sometimes not. Sometimes in stories that get like retconned away. I mean, I've lost track of how many times he's manipulated Magneto's brain and made things worse ultimately. in this scenario, by giving him this information of all these possible worlds and how they go astray, and also the information that knowing where things will go can make things worse, it kind of puts some justification on the choices Professor X has made throughout history as a character, right? So if you know, like a lot of times you say, why wouldn't Professor X just confide in people or trust people to make the right decisions? But he knows information that he can't share because if he shares it, it's the observer bias. It might alter the end result. So it just creates this amazing narrative knot that strangles my brain, and I in such a good way. Love it. I absolutely love this.
To be overly scientific, that's not the observer bias. The observer bias, because he knows, he's already changing it.
Yeah, he's already affected by
The
it.
fact that-
but
well-
if he shares it with other people,
It just compounds.
Yeah, it compounds it.
They bring it up in the episode more, or in the comic. Moira's like, just by being here, just by knowing what happens, I am affecting it.
Yeah.
Personally, I'm interested in timelines 8 and 9, Magneto timeline, and Moira Apocalypse timeline.
Well, the one where she's like, all right, maybe Magneto will work. And then finally was like, oh, okay, Apocalypse. Let's see that.
I am interested in Timeline 6.
Which one is Timeline 6? I don't know them
Timeline
off the top of my head. I
6
don't have it in front of me.
Why don't you read everything in Timeline 6 for us, James?
All right. Timeline 3, 4, 5. Oh, 6 isn't there.
Interesting.
We know nothing about Timeline,
Timeline
6.
Good catch, Pete.
This book is so convoluted.
There's
I
a
love
hole
it.
for it.
There's a
but
whole
it's not
life
there.
that we don't know what went
Anything
on.
about.
There's so many amazing
Could that
little
be the
things in
one we're
these-
seeing now? I think it's, and I don't know if this is too much foreshadowing or too much knowledge. I don't know, but isn't I think no, there's definitely too much. We'll get back to it.
See
We'll
what
get back
I'm
to it.
saying? His brain is mush.
From
and
what
it's
I
all
can
from this issue.
From what I can tell, based on that timeline that we get in this book, Timeline 10 is the baseline Marvel as we had known it before.
Right.
So that's where we're at with that.
It's very. This is. It's a brilliant book. It's a lot of it. There's a lot. There's a lot, and you know what? This sets up so much, and the hope, the desperate hope, is we're 3 issues in, and what's effectively a 12-issue miniseries.
Yeah.
That it will pay off in a way that means something, and I feel like it probably will.
And getting our hopes up.
Oh man,
I am so trepidatious about this.
my balm on this is that from the get-go they're like 12 issues, we know. Yes,
Yeah.
I've thought about this for years, and it's these are the 12 issues, and usually the problem becomes when things get too top heavy or too successful for their own good, or they have to be wrapped up really quickly, and hopefully that's not what's going to happen here. I think we need to go.
My biggest concern is that I've read a lot of Hickman's work, especially in Marvel, and he's very good at telling these very, very interesting stories. But I'm very often felt left feeling that the ending is a little hollow. I didn't get everything I wanted out of it.
But is that because the stories are so good? Because I've occasionally felt that when I've read a story that's so good that when it ends, I'm just like, there's nothing that could have satisfied me.
It's not quite that. It's not that I just wanted more and more for this to keep going and never end. It's that this doesn't quite feel like the right ending. It feels like things could have been pulled together a little bit better.
Right.
I think my thing is it's very complicated, you know, and it's tough because like in every Powers of X book, they're telling multiple stories, but then they're using Powers of 10 book, they're telling multiple stories. In every House of X book, they're telling like one singular story. And I just feel like there's a lot going on in the Powers of 10
Yeah.
stuff that I'm like, shouldn't you be using both books to tell these multiple stories?
We realize that we are 3 issues in. We are 3 issues into this. And
We're only
already
3 issues in.
3 issues in.
So much has happened.
Speaking of so much happening, I think it's time to review this book. James, what do you think about House of X number 2?
I don't have a ton of baggage with the X-Men, and this was just a joy to read in every way. I'm going to say mint.
Mint. I am blown away. I absolutely love this. I can't believe that marketing hype was true. Absolutely mint.
And here's where I end up throwing the wet blanket on the party. I'm sorry. I just have too much trepidation here. The stakes are so high, and there's one glaring plot hole or one glaring plot element that bothers me about this.
What?
It's the fact that somehow Moira's reincarnation powers also render her unable to be detected as a mutant, which is the explanation for why they never knew she was a mutant in the past. It bothers me because it doesn't seem to make any sense. It's just too narratively convenient.
It's probably the only way they could do this story, though. They needed some MacGuffin to keep her.
I don't know. I think the
agree.
fact that her power only kicks in when she dies and comes back is kind
Could
of
be.
It fits enough. But yeah, your
It's an
opinion.
interesting argument, but I just don't buy it, and that knocks it down to a near mint for me. I'm sorry.
That's still pretty good.
Pretty good, but not the triple mint that I desperately wanted.
I know. I'm sorry.
I hope everyone listening to this is going to keep reading. I sure as hell am. This has just been an amazing book, and I can't believe it. I'm so happy. It's not often you get a book that's this fun to read for pure continuity's sake, and great imagery, great writing. We hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for listening. If you did enjoy this episode, please like, follow, and subscribe so you get the latest in the podcatcher of your choice, and leave us a good review, and we'll read it in an upcoming episode, possibly one that'll get that coveted triple mint. You leave us a triple mint by giving us 5 stars and saying something nice about us personally, because I need it.
This has been a non-productive media presentation. Executive producer Frank Hablawi. This program and many others like it on the Non-Productive Network is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives license. Please share it, but ask before trying to change it or sell it. For more information, visit non-productive.com.